Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. As we gather, we are reminded that throughout Canada, we are situated on Indigenous land, both ceded treaty land and unceded land. It's steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. As a country, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of the land which we live and work. So today I acknowledge the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, of the Anishnabe and the Haudenosaunee and Neutral people on whose traditional territory I'm broadcasting from today. So Secret Path Week is a national movement commemorating the legacies of Gord Downie and Chanie Wenjack. The Gord Downie and Chanie Wenjack Fund would like to inspire all Canadian classrooms to use this week to answer Gord Downie's call to action and do something as we share knowledge and work towards reconciliation. So really excited for the event that we have kicking today off. We have Gritt joining us, a Juno Award winning two-spirit transgender Francophone Anishnabe Métis artist. After living many years in Yellowknife and forming the band Quantum Tangle, they have recently moved back to Sudbury, Robinson, Huron Treaty territory where they grew up. GR pulls effortlessly from the past to create soulful futurisms and their new sound that elegantly weaves the melodies using vocals, guitar, and new electronic elements. GR is currently preparing for the release of a new full-length album titled Ancestors in 2020 on Coax Records. So I'm going to bring GR live on the call. Hey, GR, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Good. Well, it's so awesome to have you joining in with us today. You've got a special treat for the students, and everyone's excited. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Right on. I'm excited too.
All right. Well, if you're ready, I will let you take over for a bit.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction, Miigwech. So, Ani Bojo, GR Gritt Indigenous, Sudbury, Ontario, Dungerba. Salut, bonjour, je m'appelle GR Gritt. Hello, good morning. My name is GR Gritt, and I'm coming to you from Sudbury, Ontario. I'm on Robinson Huron Treaty territory. We're on the traditional lands of the Atikmishing Anishnabe and of Wanapate First Nation. And so this is kind of my ancestral territory here. And I lived up in Yellowknife for a good 10 years, and I got to move back home in these parts a couple years ago. So it feels good to be back on home territory. As kind of mentioned in that bio, I am Anishinaabe, I'm Métis, and sometimes folks want to make you kind of choose one or the other, and you can be more than one thing. So for me, it's important for me to acknowledge my Anishinaabe ancestry and culture through my maternal grandmother. She was from Shebonaning, which is now called Killarney, Ontario, and that's where my mom grew up as well. And so they're both part of Robinson Huron Treaty. And I'm also Métis through that family line. There are a lot of ancestral family, Métis family lines that come through Killarney and the Sioux and Mattawa. So I'm a part of those family lines as well. So I feel really proud to be both Anishinaabe and Métis. We'll get into more identity shortly, but I thought I would kind of jump into a song. So I have a new album out next. It's supposed to be this year, but I think COVID has changed a lot for all of us, and it's really changed the way the music industry is working, which I think is really great. I think it's good that things are changing, and we're seeing kind of what's important and seeing how it is we should be taking care of each other. So with that being said, my album, the whole plan has changed, and you kind of just have to roll with it. But the name of the album is Ancestors. And this album was really inspired by my Nana, who grew up in Shebonaning. Her name was Marlene, but I never called my grandmother Marlene. I always called her Nana. So she she grew up there in Killarney, and she lived there before there was a road in there. So even though it's kind of like in central Ontario, it was a fly-in community or boat-in or kind of dog sled or skidoo kind of thing. And they would be able to go out to Manitoulin Island and then around and kind of get to different places if they needed to. But it was mostly through waterways, airplane, or over the frozen bay and channel. So um, that's where she grew up. And Shabananing was colonized by the English and the French. So my nana spoke mostly English, but French as well. And I'm pretty sure she spoke Anishnabe, which is um, the language of like Anishinaabe people, of the Ojibwe, of, it's kind of like a collection of languages that are really similar, um, but have a lot of different dialects. So I know she spoke that language, or I'm like very sure. But because of colonization and because of enfranchisement, it meant that she didn't feel comfortable speaking her language, or decided it was probably for the best that she didn't. So then my mom didn't learn, and then I didn't learn. So right now, um, my mom and I are both kind of slowly relearning the language and trying to do our best to get that back, which is a really cool thing to do together, but also an unfortunate thing that should have just happened from the get go. But anyways, all this to say, the album is really inspired by my nana and her experiences and what she went through and how that kind of trickles down to my mom and then to me and what that means for us. And then I felt like if I talk about these experiences, it's probably going to be, I think there's a lot of Indigenous people who can relate with that, who grow up disconnected or, um, are feeling like they maybe don't know who they are, and that can be a common Indigenous experience as well. So this song is called "Quiet Years," and it's gonna be the first song on the album, and it's about the collective quiet years that Indigenous people, and I think more than just Indigenous peoples, have experienced, where they weren't allowed to practice their culture, speak the language, have ceremony together, and even there's so many things that we had to remain silent about for many many years. So this song is kind of to pay homage to that and to acknowledge that and to really think about, if you put all those collective years together, like I think it would be lifetime upon lifetime upon lifetime, and that's really powerful, and it's something that we really need to acknowledge. So yeah, this song is called "Quiet Years," and about my nana, my mom, me, kind of my family history. All right, so here we go. And I think there might be a mic on because I can hear myself feeding back in a microphone there. So, um, Miigwech, thank you. So I'm about to do some live looping and stuff, and maybe we can even talk about that later. But yeah, here we go. songs in silence, hoping to be strong, hanging in the balance, wondering how long you could hold on, waiting out the quiet years. Waiting out the quiet years. Waiting out the quiet years. Have you been comforted by their passages and prayers? Were you trying to forgive them for stealing all those years? Were you trying to stay hidden by shortening your hair? Or did you have a vision of a time when they wouldn't care? Waiting out the quiet years. 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 And did you keep it from your family so they'd have a better life? From father down to daughter, to my mother and down to mine. Just struggle with not knowing if the choice you made was right. Would you have changed your mind if there was an end inside? Waiting out the quiet years. 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 All right. Yeah, so that's quiet years.
That was awesome. That was awesome. I love it.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I started off here. Let me turn off that reverb here. It started off with like a little guitar looper, just like a one input, one output, and it's kind of turned into something a lot bigger.
Very
Very
cool.
cool. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you. So yeah, this is an RC 505. If there's a bunch of aspiring musicians that are watching and you're interested in looping, or you're not really sure where to start, just like a one pedal looper is really great. And if you work on your rhythm, then if you get to any other looper that's kind of bigger, has 5 tracks like this kind of system, you can do anything. um, I think like most things, if you start small and you can get something small going that's really tight and strong, it's easy to just move on to a bigger system, and it's all transferable skills, which is really fun. So yeah, yeah. So that was Quiet Years, and I think, yeah, I think it's just important to figure out where you're from and who you belong to, and if you can, sometimes that just doesn't work out, and that's fine too. And so you find you belong to the people who are around you, the family that you choose, and that's really important. I feel like as an Indigenous person, I don't have the strongest connection to my home community. It's something I am working on, where I'm meeting more people who are from like Shabananing, who are becoming my friends, and who are cousins, who are, I hope one day we'll become very close. And so those are relationships that I'm working on. But I also know that I belong to a lot of other Indigenous musicians who are in, I hate to see this industry, more like this ecosystem. So I feel like I'm really held accountable by them, and I'm responsible to them. And they are to me as well. And so when it comes to like community and identity and stuff, it also is about your relationships, about who is around you, and who you're accountable to. And so that's been a really powerful thing for me. Like I felt like I'm an outcast for a lot of my life, and I'm sure there are people who are listening right now who can relate to that, where growing up, only realizing or really talking about being Indigenous in my late teens, early 20s, 17, 18 and onwards, and it becoming more and more important, and it becoming really the center of my worldview. But when I was younger, I didn't know all that stuff, because if my grandmother doesn't talk about it, then my mom doesn't talk about it, then I don't talk about it. So, um, but I was different in a lot of different ways. So, I'm a transgender person. I am a queer person. I'm non-binary. I'm two-spirit, and I feel like I'm still kind of learning about those things, even though they're part of my identity. So, like as a trans and queer person, I grew up in rural Northern Ontario, and I didn't feel like it was a safe place for me to be who I am. And it took a lot of years of, kind of moving away from home and meeting other people who made me feel courageous and made me feel like myself, to be able to, look at who I was and say, okay, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to be who I am. But that I find that can take community and family, chosen family or otherwise. Um, but it was really hard and really challenging, but I feel really good about where I am today and who I am today, where I feel like I can just proudly say and easily say, like, yes, I'm trans, and yes, I'm queer, and yes, I'm non binary, and, you know, yes, I'm two spirit. And I think it'll be challenging for a long time, but I hope for anyone who's listening today, if you see that in yourself, it's okay to be safe and to kind of keep that to yourself if you need to, if that's what's going to keep you safe until you can get to a moment where you can decide who you want to be and how you want to live that way. Um, and then I just feel like once you can get to a safe place or a place in your life where you can acknowledge those things and really unpack those things, like I'm actually so excited for you to be able to do that. It's such a powerful and liberating thing. And, I've said this to lots of folks over the years, and some people have taken up on it. But if you're a trans person, if you're a queer person, if you're non-binary or two-spirit and you're struggling with that, if you know other people around you who are, reach out to them. And I've had some people reach out to me that I didn't know, and they ended up being such good friends of mine, like years and years later. And I'm getting a little bit emotional, but this is something I didn't have when I was growing up. I didn't have people to look up to who are queer, trans, who are non-binary. So it took me a long time to figure out that that's who I was. Because if you don't see it around you, you don't realize that you can be that way. So for me, like, if you're struggling with that, there are people around you who have struggled with it too, and folks who are older and have a bit more perspective. So if you find yourself like really questioning and not being sure, you can reach out to me. You know, you can send a message and say, "Hey, have you ever felt this way?" or "Hey, I need some advice," and I'll answer you. And if you know other people who are, like, chances are they will answer you too. So um, I know it puts a lot of onus on you to kind of be brave and to reach out there, and that can be really hard. Um, but I hope that you feel like you can, and I hope that you do. So next song. So this next song has to do with relationships, and so I wrote it about kind of the dynamic that we're in right now with Indigenous folks and kind of the Canadian government and Indigenous folks and basically like non-Indigenous folks and but mostly just the Canadian government and not honoring the treaties. So I think we can see in the news right now how that's playing out, right? With the Mi'kmaq on the East Coast, or like folks up in Wet'suwet'en, or there's all these examples, of these treaty violations. And I kind of wanted to write a song about relationships, because really a treaty is like a relationship, right? Of like how you and I are going to work together, and how we're also going to work together with the land, because we're all treaty people, and we're all a part of the land. We're a part of that ecosystem. We're not separated. We are integrated. We are the land. It's us, and we are it, and it feeds us and sustains us, and we sustain it, and we take care of it too. So we take care of each other. So that's what the treaties are about. It's basically a document between, two parties or more, and it's basically just duking out, or not duking out, sorry. It's laying out how we're going to work together, and kind of the rules around that, and the boundaries, and kind of how we want to do this together. So, great, since we've signed them, it hasn't really been fair. It hasn't been, one side really hasn't upheld it. And so I thought I would write a song about that, but more in a light of like relationships. And I think when you boil it down to a personal experience of like experiences with friends or with partners, and it goes sour or something doesn't work out, I think people can really relate to that versus a bigger thing about different nations coming together, yada yada. I was like, let's bring it down to a place where I think everyone can relate. So this is called Doubt It. And yeah, let's just switch this over. Oops. All right, let's get this capo on, and let's get this song going. It started like everyone knew for a time. thought we held the same thread, were of one mind. We met to lay out what each of us needs. I thought you were listening, but something's making me. Didn't doubt it, didn't doubt it, didn't doubt it. You say it's not your fault, your hands are tied as you wrap your strings tight around mine. You ask me for one more day every year, month and week. Your friends say to wait, you know what's best for me. Didn't I doubt it? Didn't 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 doubt it? And if I did to you as you've done to me, take your children, your language, your water and trees. Take your culture, your land, your bones and bodies. Would you ever believe me when I say that I'm sorry? Didn't I doubt it? Didn't 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 doubt it? You never believe me. Didn't doubt it? Never believe me. Didn't doubt it? Didn't I doubt it? Didn't I doubt it? Never believe me. Didn't doubt it? Never believe me. Didn't doubt it? Didn't I doubt it? Didn't 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 doubt it? Miigwech.
Very cool. Very cool. Great.
Thank you. Miigwech, thank you so much. Ooh. Always gets me a little bit emotional. I always feel like this time I'll just get it and I'll be like so, I don't know. But every time, just it. I'm also a person who has like anxiety, so like sometimes I'll get on stage and I'll start coughing, and that's like it's like a little panic attack. And I find when I'm singing and I'm emotional, like I just want to head right into like a coughing fit, and sometimes I do, and I just like own it. And but I'm glad I didn't today. I don't know. It's nice to not have panic attacks, but yeah. I just like to own it and share that, because you know what? I was doing this like little music video thing all distanced. It was like one song, and a friend of mine was like moving around with a camera, and so we did like a one shot music video. And I had to stop the first time because it got me worked up because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be on camera, and like, do I look good enough, and does it sound good enough, and I don't know, and it kind of overwhelmed me, and I started coughing, and I was like, we need to stop. And there was another band setting up, and the drummer came over, and he was like, oh, are you okay? You need anything? And I was like, actually, I'm just having a panic attack. And he was like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not the only one. I know I'm gonna have like two today when doing this. I've never done a music video before. And I was like, see, everyone has all the things. Like, it's we don't have to feel like this shame or feel alone, because there's someone out there who feels like you do. And there's someone out there who has gone through the same thing as you or something really similar. And so, like, yeah, anxiety is a thing. Panic attacks are a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just get out there.
I just like I feel like as a person who, have a lot of different identities, and that means like if you don't fit into what you think the norm is or what everyone around you is telling you is normal, then you can feel shame or guilt or feel bad about it. And um so anyways, I just try to peel back those layers, because I know, like, I spent a couple of years traveling and playing music and like having attacks on stage. And it's like, you know what, if you have anxiety, you can still be a performer, and you could still be out there public speaking and doing all that. And you know and you can also be a person who has panic attacks. Like, they're not exclusionary, and you can just be you.
Did you have a strategy for you?
Yeah, actually, I find before getting on stage, it's good to have like even like a little couple minutes carved out just for yourself to like sit and kind of relax. And so I find in that time, up to when I'm even on stage, sometimes even while I'm singing, I'll just say like, I'll just have this mantra over and over, just being like, excuse me, saying, you know, I'm a good singer. I'm a good singer. I'm a good singer. I can do this. Like, it's just this, you just pick a phrase, and you, like, if it's your singing that's making you feel, like, for me, sometimes my singing will make me feel anxious. Um, because of like hormone therapy, my voice has dropped a lot over the years, and I didn't know if I'd be able to sing. So, you know, testosterone will lower your voice in a permanent way, and I didn't know if that meant I would never be a singer again. So that like stressed me out so much. And so anytime I'd be singing, even sometimes up to now, because your voice never really stops changing, it just slows down, I guess. But I'd be so stressed out. What if this is the moment where I bail, where I'm like trying to hit this note, but my voice is lowered and I can't hit it, and then I embarrass myself, things like that. So that would get me really worked up and anxious, and it still kind of does today. So something I'll say is like, "You're a good singer. You're a good singer. You're a good singer," or "You can hit that note. Just sing the song. Just sing it as emotionally and as good as you can, and just sing it. And if you don't hit the note, it doesn't matter, because you'll forget about it tomorrow anyways." So those are kind of like the two ways that I do it. I kind of just, yeah, have a way that I guess I carve out like a mantra or a phrase that I know will make me realize that like I don't it's not the end of the world. I can start coughing right now, and then I'll just be like, I'm coughing because I had a panic attack. And then people will be like, oh, okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. So, but sometimes things feel like it is the end of the world. If I don't have this perfect live stream, I'm not going to have any more work. And if I don't sing this perfect note, then no one's going to hire me anymore. Or people won't like my music, or all these different things. And then I realized like there are plenty of singers out there who sing in ways that some people love and some people don't love, and they're still doing fine. So it's okay if I don't hit this one note this one time, and it's okay if I'm, not performing perfectly, but if I do the best that I can in this moment, and I know that I did my best, and that's okay too. So I think those are ways that I work work through that anxiety. And also like I think it's just like a normal thing when you're excited about something and it's really important to you, like you don't want to mess up and you want to do your best. I think that's a really relatable thing. So I think most people can really like empathize with that. And yeah. So maybe I'll jump into one more song, and then maybe we can all chat. And if you want to, if folks out there are listening and they want to think about some questions that they have, maybe about like either like being indigenous or being queer, or what's this thing here, or what's that, or what's this little doodad, anything. Maybe if you want to think about it now, if there's anything you're curious about, think about it now, and I'll sing a song, or maybe there's something in that song that'll make you want to ask a question, and then after, hopefully, we can chat and share some wisdom together. So the song is called Shabananing, and I it's an Anishnabe word. It's I believe it means safe passage by canoe, but that's only what is written. I haven't asked anyone from there what it means, so I take it with a little bit with a grain of salt. But Shabananing is now called Killarney, Ontario, and again, it's where my nana was from, where my mom is from, and so I kind of feel like I'm from there as well. I've spent some time there as a kid, so I have like a lot of fond memories. And I thought, you know, thinking about my nana and thinking about spending time with her there, I really want to write a song about that. And it was really important for me. I was like, even if I just have one Anishinaabemowin word, I was like, I'd love to have that language somewhere in my album. And I kind of set the goal. I was like, you know what? Even if it's just one word, it's gonna be that first like gateway word to me using it more and more in my music. So I was like, I'm gonna do this, and let's just see kind of how it goes. So this is the song that came out, talking about those memories, talking about my grandmother, talking about reclamation, and yeah, using an Anishinaabemowin word in my music. So I found that really exciting. So here we go. And sometimes while looping, you make mistakes. Sound, sound, sound. Needles on the ground. White pine all around. Take, take, take. Clay out from the lake. Make it any shape. Stone, stone, stone. Made into pink rose. Tell me that I'm home. Say, say, say. Say all of the names I never heard you say. say, 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 say. Say, 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 say. Say, 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 say. Say, 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 say. I'll make my way back to this lake. Time does not touch your weight. I'm standing where you stood for all your days. And I know you are from this land. I know I'm from this land. They tried to erase it, but they can't. And I will seek out all the names that they tried so hard to take. Those names were never theirs to change. So say, 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 say. Say, 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 say. Say, 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 say. Say, 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 say. Shabanane, Shabanane, Shabanane. Miigwech, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh,
Very
you're
cool,
here.
very cool. You are sharing with us today.
So I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for letting me share my story and my life and my songs. I really appreciate it. It's yeah, it's really great to connect with you all.
Awesome. Well, I know some classes might have to, have periods ending or have to head to lunch. So feel free to do so if you have to. But if there are some questions out there, we have time for a few, definitely. So if you want to send somebody up to the camera, and that'll kind of be my signal to pick your group, and we can work in a few questions before we wrap up today. So it looks like Miss Crier's class has someone coming up, so I'm going to bring them in.
Hello. My name's Owen. I like music, and honestly, that was very nice. You inspired me to make music, like, more frequently now. So I thought that was a great performance. The question I have, though, is how did you get the initial funding to start producing your own music?
That you're inspired to do more. That's so good. We need more musicians and we need more music in the world. So Miigwech for sharing that with me. For initial funding for producing stuff, there's lots of grants out there, and some of them are business grants, and some of them are arts grants, and some are municipal or community, and then you have kind of provincial funding, and then you have or territorial, and then you have federal funding. So the things you can access are like sometimes there are smaller bursaries for artists that you can look up that are maybe in the hundreds of dollars, and then there are municipal or community grants. So maybe in your city there's a grant for arts. I know there's different ones. Like I know Toronto's a big city, but Toronto Arts Council, for example, or I think Hamilton in Ontario has an arts council, and has grants. So there are some like smaller cities that will have arts grants that you can that access. Now it does take some time and some resources to be able to write them, and take some time for like understanding and reading them. But most of the time, if there is some sort of grant or bursary out there, there's usually like a someone you can call to ask questions. And a lot of the times, especially if you're a youth and there's something for youth, they're going to be really excited to help you. So I think the biggest thing is like being able to reach out to people for help. If you know other people who have gotten grants, or if you know someone who works in that community space that is awarding grants, like give them a call and ask them. I think the other thing too is like I was lucky that I had summer jobs growing up. So like for my first instruments that I got, like my parents bought me my first little 3/4 size guitar when I was like 9 or 10 years old. But after that, I getting my next acoustic guitar, like I worked a summer job in order to buy that guitar. Um, and again, any kind of like electric after that, I kind of just like saved up my money to do that. But again, I was really lucky where, I had my license and I could drive. My parents had a car that I could use and I could drive and go work my job. So I understand that there's like a lot of privileges and a lot of things that really lined up well for me to be able to do that. So I was able to get a cyber job. I was able to buy my first guitars, and then I was able to to go to school for audio recording, which again I'm so like privileged and so happy that I was able to do that. Took a lot of hard work, but also like again things lined up really well where I was able to afford that. So um, with bursaries and saving up, obviously. Um, but when it comes to music, the thing is that you don't need a lot these days to be able to create music. There's software out there that's either cheap or free, things like Reaper. You don't technically have to buy it outright right away, but it's like $60 and it gives you a programming software that can use plugins and stuff. So there are like trial versions or smaller versions of recording software that you can use. If you have a Mac, if you're able to get your hands on a Mac, GarageBand works just fine to start. So basically, I guess the thing I want to say is like if you're producing music and making music, like you don't need a lot of expensive stuff to begin with. Um, you just need to have the will and the desire and the time. So if you have access to a computer that has GarageBand, um, start there. There's amazing uh, drum kits in there and sounds that you can use in there. If you look online, there's a lot of different sample packs of like sound of like drums that are pre-recorded that you can snip up and put together. So basically, just like pick a software that you can get your hands on. Start watching YouTube videos on like how to use that program and use the sounds that come with it to start. And you'll find you'll be able to create some really cool stuff. You can get some small like MIDI controllers, little keyboards that are like, in the $60 to $80 range. Again, it's not cheap, but it's something that'll last you like forever. Like I bought one like 6 or 7 years ago and it came on with me on the plane, like touring. And so, it'll last you a long time. So just use whatever tools you have available to you right now. Even if it's like if you have a phone and you can get recording software on your phone, just start with that with a mic on there and start recording. Um, Billie Eilish, like some of the samples that are used on there are from like her brother recording guitar on a cell phone. So it doesn't have to be complicated stuff. Look around you and see what you have access to, and learn how to use those things really well, and that'll make the difference. Um, if you folks have ever heard of Bryden Gwiss, he's an Anishinaabe um, singer songwriter, traditional singer, but also like he does kind of like hip hop R&B, or more like hip hop stuff, I guess, with like traditional sounds and beats. And his album was nominated for a Juno in 2017, and he did it all on his phone. So like you can make good stuff on what it is that you have already, and then if you find that you're getting good at it or you're having a really good time and that's really what you want to focus on, then you can start looking into like what are the people that I look up to, what are they using, and maybe trying to find that kind of gear that'll work well. But right now, whatever you got, just learn how to use it well, and you'll be able to create some amazing stuff, like truly. So that's where I say to start, and then try and start accessing those municipal, provincial, or territorial, or federal grants. So the Canada Council, Ontario Arts Council, I know BC Arts Council, like every province has their own funding. And then if you're Indigenous, like my first grant that I ever got was a business grant from the Métis Nation of Ontario, and it helped me. Um, it just helped me get some gear so that I could record my own album. Which, I mean, it was my first one, so it was like a little bit rough around the edges, but it was such a good learning experience. So just start with whatever you got where you're at, and you'll be able to do some good stuff. Anyways, I feel like that was a long answer.
Great. Miss T's calling.
So, hi, I just want to say a really when did you know you wanted to be a musician, and also what got you into music?
Question. Thank you. Um, I knew I wanted to be a musician. I feel like from the moment I picked up a guitar. So, um, I think I have this like old memory of me like getting a guitar from a garage sale or something, like just in the community that I lived in, and it was like all caved in. It wasn't really for playing. It was more like if someone thought it was cool, maybe you'd hang it on the wall kind of thing. And so it was really bad, but I like played on it a lot, and it must have sounded really bad. And so my parents were like, "Do you want to take guitar lessons?" And I was like, again, 9 or 10, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was really lucky that there was a music teacher. He taught music in Sudbury, but he lived in the neighboring town. So my parents drove me to get lessons, and he's probably the best teacher I ever had. Out of all the years, I mean, I had a lot of great teachers. I think he's the one I connected most with. I think that's the best way to put it. So he'd play piano while I played guitar, and it was like so exciting. I was like, oh, I love this. And then when I was in high school, I just knew I wanted to be a musician. I didn't even think I wanted to be a singer. I never really thought about it. And then I got into a band, and they needed a singer, so I just yeah started that way. And I knew if there was a way for me to live doing art, I would love to do that. I just didn't know it was possible. So I went to went to college for like electronics, and after 2 weeks I quit because I was like, I don't think I can do this. But then I got into audio school to do live sound and music recording. So I went and did that, and that was the best thing. Um, it's not easy to get jobs in those kind of technical fields when it comes to like live sound or being a producer or having a studio, working in a studio. It's really difficult, and it's there's a lot of competition, I guess. But it helped me out so much. I was able to record my own albums, and get that experience, and it's meant that like I kind of understand better how to do this stuff, which I really appreciate. Anyways, but yeah, in high school I was just like I would love to be a musician, and at that point I think I was more like if I could just have a band, be in bands for the rest of my life, I'd be so happy. And then I didn't. The more I did, performances, and the more I was kind of like I started playing festivals when I was in my late teens, early 20s. Then I was like, okay, maybe I can actually do this. And so 5 years ago is when I started as a full time artist. I left my job, and I was like, I'm gonna try and do this, and it was really stressful and hard. It took it took some time, but you know, I'm I'm really grateful that I kind of took the plunge and decided to focus on it full time. And so it takes some years to get enough kind of like connections and networking, and to get enough people interested in what you're doing and having you come and perform and stuff, that it took me a while to be able to kind of focus on it full time. So I feel really lucky and privileged for that. So yeah, in high school I wanted to be in bands, but I think it was more in my 20s I was like, okay, I think maybe I could actually do this. And the thing is that you can too. And it's just taking those first steps. Don't get too far ahead and like, how am I going to do this? Just start making those steps of like writing songs, or maybe you want to write songs for other people, or maybe you just want to be the sound tech or whatever. Start taking those small steps of seeing like where can you do that. I started doing tech in high school, so I was like the tech club, and like learning how to like plug in soundboards and all that stuff, and that's what got me really interested. And then we were doing a play, and my teacher was like, I have this software, Cool Edit Pro, which I think is like now Adobe Audition maybe. And she's like, here's my laptop and here's my CD-ROM of my software. And I mean, my teacher sent me home with her laptop. I could not believe this. Like, people didn't really have laptops at that time. So, and then I just had to learn how to use this recording software. So for me, again, people were kind of like, figure out how to do this, or like, we need you to do this, figure it out. And so, and then it turned into a passion. So whatever it is that you want to do, just like start taking those small steps and figure it out. If you want to start making beats, like you can get programs on your phone, just start doing it that way and see where it brings you. You're going to learn more and more the more you're watching YouTube videos, the more you're watching other people perform. Yeah. And then I guess I don't know if I answered the second question. I forget. I forget what it was. I'm so sorry. I can go on these long tangents.
That's okay. I'm gonna so GR, we have to stop the live broadcast portion because we have another event coming up. But if you're up for it, we can do a little kind of after hours. I can leave this call open with a couple classrooms who are still with us because I know they have more questions. So if you want to answer a couple more of their questions while I kind of pop off to the next event, if you're comfortable with that, that would be awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Perfect. To those tuning in via YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. GR, just an official thank you. Thank you for opening up today. I'm sure there's many students out there, thinking about their identity, struggling with anxiety. So thank you so much for opening up and sharing your story today. The music was incredible. The stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Miigwech, thanks so much for having me, Joe. Really appreciate it.